Welcome to the Spirits Operator podcast. I'm your host, Mary B. Here we navigate the ethereal currents between the mystical and the mundane. Join us as we embark on a journey to unravel the mysteries of healing, metaphysics, and the extraordinary, guiding you through a realm where spirituality meets everyday life. Get ready to explore the unseen forces that shape our world and discover how to harness their power for personal growth and transformation. Welcome aboard, fellow travelers, as we embark on this captivating adventure together. Hello, and welcome to the Spirits Operator podcast. I'm your host, Mary B., and today we're thrilled to have Trinity with us. Trinity is a holistic, psychic, intuitive healer and the small business owner of Earthen Healing LLC, located in Kansas City, Missouri. From a young age, she has nurtured her intuitive gifts and through deep meditation and healing practices has forged a powerful connection with spirit. Trinity dedicates her life to guiding others on their healing journeys. She specializes in sound therapy and Reiki, using these transformative tools to help people heal and find their spiritual paths. In this episode of our series, The Many Waves of Healing, Trinity shares her unique insights and experiences and reveals how she harnesses the power of sound and energy to facilitate profound healing. So thank you so much for being here today, Trinity, and taking the time out of your day to talk to us.
Yes, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, we were talking before the start here, before we started recording, and you mentioned your path here and how you've discovered yourself. So I want to hear your story about how you've discovered your intuitive gifts and your early experiences with spirituality.
Yeah, so I would say my first spiritual experience was with nature. When I was a kid, I was very connected to Gaia, and I would talk to the trees and talk to the grass and run around, and I felt a lot of joy at first. So I was raised in Catholic school and in a Catholic home, and that kind of was a little jolting for me because I would go from kind of what I would say is my waking life personally feeling a lot of joy, and then I would kind of be brought into this negative experience that I was having with religion and spirituality. And so at that time I started, kind of seeing things, hearing things. All of that was being introduced to me from a very young age. But then some kind of traumatic dark events started happening, and I felt like a lot of darkness was starting to come in with those gifts.
Was this the things you were seeing? Were those like spirits, or what was that?
Yeah, I started seeing spirits. Okay. Sorry, I should have clarified. I started seeing.
No, it's okay. I just wanted to know.
Yes, I started seeing like shadows and spirits around me, and I just started having this like direct knowing, this sense of like, oh, the energy in this room feels really good, or oh, the energy in this room feels really bad, or oh, I shouldn't talk to that person, I should talk to this person. That started happening very, very young. But then as things in my life kind of started taking a turn, and I was getting a lot of indoctrination into you are bad, you are evil, you're a sinner, and my schooling. And so when that started happening, the things I was receiving started also to become negative. I felt like everywhere I went, the energy in the room was anxious and was dark and was heavy. And I started feeling those presences a lot more than the nature and the fun and the joy and the, oh, this is great. And so I kind of shut everything down. I was like, okay, I don't want to hear, I don't want to see, I don't want to feel this stuff, because I was a kid and very overwhelmed. And I was like, this is too much. And if this is what it means to be connected or whatever this is, I don't want it. And so I kind of shut everything down. And
Makes sense.
Yeah. I was like, I don't know what else to do, so let's just not. But as I got older, the two things that always stayed with me was this sense of direct knowing and then my connection with nature. Those two things always stayed. And as I started healing and as I started getting older and kind of being able to work through some of the things I experienced as a child and some of the indoctrination that had been pushed on me, my gifts started to come back. And I slowly started seeing shadows again. I slowly started being able to sense things again. And I was like, okay, I don't really know what this is, but okay. And I knew one day ultimately that I was going to have to face the things I experienced as a child in order to fully realize these gifts and to fully connect with them. And I always kind
Yeah.
of intuitively knew that. And I was like, well, I know that when I'm ready to walk through that healing door, that the door's open. I just have to be ready to walk through it. And so as I got older, when I was around, I think I was 19, I was like, okay, I'm going to go to therapy. I'm going to start working on this stuff. I need to
Wow,
start
at 19?
uncovering 19 or 20. I was 19 or
That's a
20. I don't
pretty
remember.
strong, discernment of I need to do this to
Yeah.
heal. That at that age, that's pretty profound. So,
Yes. I just kind of, I just knew if I want my life to go in the best direction, I need to face these things. And
yeah.
so, I started going to therapy, but my search for a therapist was tough because, I
Hmm.
believed in spirit guides and energies and all of these things. And I didn't want to go to a therapist that was going to tell me that that can't also coexist with my emotions or that I was crazy. That
Ah,
was my worst fears. I was going to go to a therapist and they were going to tell me I was crazy. Um, and I found a therapist license in IFS, which stands for Internal Family Systems, and it completely changed my life. It's
no,
an
I'm not familiar with
incredible.
that.
Okay, so Internal Family Systems was founded by Dr. Richard Schwartz. And everything I know about it is just from my personal reading. I'm not certified in it or anything. But
Yeah.
it's basically the idea that at the center of who we are is like our soul, or they call it self with a capital S and IFS.
Mhm.
And your self is pure and good. So connected, calm, caring, loving, this ultimate compassionate version of who you are, you at your absolute best. And as you go through childhood and as you get older, you have what are called parts, or what a lot of people would call the ego form. And
Okay.
so these parts help you deal with your life. And so those are things like anxiety, maybe a really analytical, logical part that shows up, or it can be, a super aggressive part that in modern day we might look at and be like, oh, that's bad. These thoughts I'm telling myself, I'm beating myself up. That's bad. Why am I doing that? It can be a part that's even that aggressive. And the idea is that all of these parts form because at one point in time, they learned that that's what they had to do to help you to get out of your situation.
Yeah.
And so
Yes.
it's a beautiful, like empathetic, holistic based therapy. And basically, Richard Schwartz, the founder, was a family therapist, and he started realizing when he started doing one on one work that people talked about themselves the way that they talked about their family dynamics. Like, oh, well, my mom thinks this is best for me, my dad thinks this is best for me, my brother's doing this to me and I feel this way. And he realized when he was dealing with patients of eating disorders that they talked about themselves similarly. I do this thing
Hmm.
because I feel this way, and I feel this way because of this and this and this, and all of these parts of me feel different ways. And he started
Interesting.
realizing, what if these people are naturally have all of these parts? We naturally break ourselves down into all of these different subcategories to deal with the trauma that we go through in life. And the best way to
Mm-hmm.
heal them is to approach them with self energy, with love and compassion, to begin to get to know them the way you would get to know a family member. Like, hey, why do you feel that way? Tell me about it. But you do this with yourself. Anxiety, why do you feel that way? Tell me about it. Where did you learn to do this? Why have you had to do this for so long? And then eventually, once they
Yeah.
start earning your trust, they realize, oh, I'm not 13 years old. These things aren't happening anymore. There is like a soul, a compassion, a loving energy here that I didn't know about before. And then once they connect with
Hmm.
those energies and know about them, they begin to trust you, and they start to let you drive the car instead of them driving the car.
The ego that people kind of talk about in a negative way.
Yes.
And
Yes.
this is transforming it into
Yes.
something
Yeah.
that's positive for your healing journey. I love that
Yes.
because it's part of us, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's kind of his biggest point, is he believes truly we are good. And anything that comes from you, even if at first glance you're like, oh, that's not good, is good. And they're just working on, your ego is working on trauma based information. And so
Mm.
similarly, the way that a child who's been abused the only way they know how to get attention is to freak out. We would never
Yeah.
scream and yell at that child and push them away and lock them in a closet and say, "You're bad. I don't want to look at you. I don't want to deal with you." We would hold them and hug them and try to understand why they're feeling, and then try to get them out of the bad situation that they're in and teach them better ways to cope. And in similar
Yes.
ways, that's what we need to do with, he calls it parts. He doesn't use the word ego because he's trying to kind of get away from the dogma that's been attached to that word.
That makes
Um,
sense. Yes.
yeah. So he says that's what we need to do with ourselves. And when I heard about my therapist explaining this to me, I was like, oh, heck yeah,
We're on
yes,
it.
we're on it. This is exactly, we are right here together. Um, and, underneath parts, there's different levels and categories of parts that they put themselves into. Underneath parts are like exiles, which would be like an inner child trauma that pushed itself away so deeply. Um,
Mm.
that we kind of lock up. It doesn't want to be found. And then other
Yeah.
parts actively work to keep you from it because it's just so dark and it's just so heavy that they don't want you to have to feel that way anymore. And so
Mm.
through my therapy journey, it really was about, learning about the different parts of who I am, or my ego, as some people would call it, listening to them, understanding where they're coming from, providing them love, providing them compassion. And then once they trusted me, then I could go down to that deeper level and look at what happened in my childhood. Okay, what did Catholic school teach me that I don't need to believe about myself? Or what
Mm-hmm.
did, XYZ experiences do to me that is not true? But I couldn't really get to that deep level of healing until I had done the surface work, until I had given myself
Yeah.
time and trust and patience. Then I could go down. Because just like, I wouldn't trust a stranger to come up and just start helping me the same way our emotions. If I don't sit down with them and talk with them and listen to them, I'm basically just a stranger coming up and being like, hey, don't feel this way. Let me hear your deepest, darkest secrets, and let's just
And you're like,
bring it
no.
all out. Like, no, I don't know you. Who are you? Leave me alone. And
Stranger
so,
danger.
yeah. And so, it was a lot of work, and it took a few years. I mean, I even just recently they go through a process called unburdening, which is where an inner child has, basically, or exile is what they call it, trusted you enough, told you enough information to where they're like, okay, I don't want to be here anymore. I would like to
Mm.
rejoin you in what they call the internal family system. So you bring them back in. And so you
Oh,
go through
wow.
this really beautiful process, and the exile is allowed to give their memories and give their energy to an element. So, like water, fire, earth. And in these ceremonies, you call in your spirit guides, you
Oh,
call
I feel
in,
this. Woo.
yeah, you call in your spirit guides, you call in your loved ones, yourself is there, and you walk this inner child or this exile. It's not always children, but through this beautiful process of unburdening. And then
Mm.
they come back with you into your system. And they might still have more to tell you. You never forget what happens to you, but they're no longer stuck in what they've been going through, and they trust you to protect them now. And
Oh,
so,
goodness. This is
yeah,
great.
yeah, it's this beautiful process, and it's not easy, but it's so worth it. And I think
Yeah.
changing the way we speak about ourselves and speak about the ego is so important, because I don't think it's this thing that's bad and we have to push it away and shove it down. I think
Yeah.
it's good, and they are a part of us. And we need to approach it with love and empathy, just like we would anybody that was hurting and in
Mhm.
pain.
I love this. And, I do see a lot of clients, working through psychic readings and things like that, where we're uncovering
Yeah,
themselves and pieces of themselves that have been hidden or covered up. And it's a good tool to know that this is out there for people as far as
yeah,
a particular type of therapy, that I can look at recommending for people. So
yeah.
this is great. So thank you for this
Oh, of
much.
course. Yeah, it has changed my life. And I think he has two books that he's written that are out there, but he has tons of YouTube videos that you can go on and watch, and you can actually see sessions in action to kind of like understand like, oh, okay, I see how this works. I see what's going on here.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's really, really great. Their whole institute, the IFS Institute, is awesome.
I'll have to check that out. That's really inspiring.
Yeah.
Well, I know that this is the beginning of your healing journey that you started when you
Yeah.
were in your early 20s. So now you work with people and you help them, and you're able to hold space because you're at a healed point, right? So
Yeah.
now let's look at how you use your tools to help others work through their stuff. So how do you take your sound healing that you do and apply that to the healing process or
Yeah.
for others?
So right now I practice sound healing or sound healing and Reiki or just Reiki on its own. And when someone comes to me for a sound healing session, depending on what they want to work on, I have a specific meditation for whatever it might be. I have specific meditations I've written for each chakra or for earth or like a certain goal. And so when people come in, we always address, how they're feeling, if they're feeling any physical pain that the sound can help with through things like tuning forks that I can actually put on the body to help with physical pain. And then we also
Mm-hmm.
talk about where they're at emotionally and spiritually, which that can, be a wide variation between people, because some people coming for sound healing like to come for a specific physical or emotional ailment, and then some people come because they want to reconnect spiritually or meet their guides or even kind of go out on a journey. Maybe they want to connect with some ET energy. I mean, it's like really open to everything that we can do with sound, because sound essentially is a portal. Really, depending on what the client needs or wants at that time, I adjust the sound and the meditation for what they need. And so through the meditations in the beginning, I incorporate a lot of that IFS language. So in the beginning of the
Mm.
meditation, it's all about, okay, I am going to take this time to establish some trust and establish some rules of how we're going to speak about ourselves and speak about each other in this safe space. And so when we go into this meditation, one of the first things I say in this meditation is to go inside and to check how all of these different parts of you are feeling. And if any part is scared or hesitant and doesn't want to be here, they don't have to be. If they're not ready to heal and this is too scary, then I have my clients ask them to step aside and to enter into a
Yeah.
waiting room, and they can come back
Yes.
when we're done. Just because the last thing I want to do is force healing on a part or on a person that's not ready yet, because that just
Absolutely.
is automatically going to lose all of the trust. That
Shut down. Yes.
Yeah, shut down automatically. It's not helpful for anybody. And so that's one of the first things I say, to incorporate that IFS language in the beginning. And then on the other hand of that, inviting any parts that are ready to heal or want to experience that self energy, that higher self, loving, compassionate energy, that they're welcome to stay and they're welcome to
Mm.
join us. Um, and I feel like that really helps hold the space and establish the rules for the space for how the sound healing or how the Reiki is going to go.
Yeah, that
And
intention, right?
yeah, yeah, very, very strong intention. And I do think that helps too, especially when I'm working with a new client who maybe hasn't worked with me yet, to establish a little bit of trust. Like, hey, I'm not coming after you. I'm not going to force you to do this. Everything's okay. We're going to work at the pace that you're ready for. And so, yeah, after that meditation, depending on if it's sound or sound and Reiki, then we'll enter into the healing portal of however their session is going that day.
Interesting. So, I mean, when I think of sound, I think of music, and I think how music captivates us.
Music and sound, it's so incredibly powerful. And so the science of sound has so many different factors that go into it. But generally speaking, when we're doing a sound healing, what we're doing is we're activating the parasympathetic nervous system in the body. And so
Mm-hmm.
when that happens, we're aiding things like insomnia, anxiety, depression. We're helping keep the blood rate low. There's also illnesses it can help with: Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's, chronic
Wow.
pain, things like that. Sound can help with so many things. And through one way that it does that is it helps the body enter into what they call state of coherence. So what that means is that the heart and the brain entrain with each other. So your heart gets into a healthy heart rate variability pattern, and then it talks with the brain. It gets the brain going, okay, okay, and it enters into a healthy brainwave pattern. And then your heart is actually the one that then communicates with the rest of your body and gets the other organs involved. So then your entire body, when you're
Mm.
in this state of coherence, is at a physically and emotionally efficient state, which is like associated with compassion and love and some of those higher emotions that we know to be in higher frequencies.
Not a chaotic state where it may have already started
Yes.
out, where it wasn't combined together with the whole body and the heart and
Yes. Yeah.
mind. Oh,
Yeah.
goodness. I love that.
Yeah, yeah. Dr. Mitchell Abrams, he has a really great TED talk, but one analogy he makes on there is like the heart is the conductor of the orchestra and the body is the orchestra and the heart is actually at the lead. And they used to think that it's the brain, and the more studies that are happening, they're like, no, nope, it's the
Yes.
heart. So,
That makes
yeah.
sense to me. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's where a lot of anxiety comes in, right? Because
Yeah.
people feel it in their heart,
Yeah.
and that's where they're wiggling out of coherence.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. When we start in a session, I like to use, so every practitioner is a little different. Sound healing practitioner, I feel like everyone has their own flair and approach and instruments that
mhm.
they have. Um, Typically, when I work with a client, I start by using the tuning forks because I like those because I can put them on the body and begin to get the body adjusted to the portal we're about to create with the
Yes.
sound. And also, if they're having any physical pain, it helps with that. And so it just helps get like the physical body like, okay, what are we about to enter in here to? And then after the tuning forks, I like to use the Tibetan bowls, which are the metal bowls, because man,
Hmm.
those just break up energy. I'll put them on my clients' bodies or right next to them, and man, when they resonate, I can feel and sense the energy just like breaking
Wah, wah,
up.
wah, wah.
Yeah, and beginning to move. And then from there, different instruments might get incorporated, but at the end, I always end with the quartz crystal singing bowls because I feel like
Oh,
those hold and carry the body so well. And it really
okay.
helps the body adjust to all of the healing that it's received in a really gentle, beautiful way. And it kind of
Why do you think that
slowly
is
carries people. Well,
between the metal and the crystal? I mean,
so
just
the
curious.
crystal, yeah, so the crystal is silica. So it's really similar to what we already have in our bodies, what our bones are made of.
Mm.
And so I think there's an anatomy part of it is just like it is a material that is similar to what's already in our bodies. And I think that's part of it.
Ah.
But quartz is also piezoelectric, which basically has to do with its function to be able to transmute energy. That's why they
Mm.
use quartz in watches and phones and computers and stuff. It's a really high conductor. And so I think that's also part of it is just able to transmute and move and handle massive amounts of energy. Versus, I think the metal bowls do a really great job of moving energy, but I think the
Hmm.
quartz bowls, that's why it carries the energy so well. The quartz
Interesting.
bowls are also putting out like single sine wave frequencies, whereas the metal bowls are putting out overtones and different. That's kind of why it has that metal like ringing when you hit
Wing.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Me
yeah.
and my
There's
sound
different
effects.
over. Yeah, you're great. We gotta get like a keyboard and program them
Wing,
in.
wing.
Yeah. And so I think that's part of it too. And there, honestly, there's just like there's a wisdom about the quartz bowls. Like when I'm using the quartz bowls, there's a relationship between the two of us, a communication that's happening. And I know that sounds odd, but if I am like sensing like, okay, I'm going to start playing faster and it's not what the client needs and I've misread the situation, it won't let me. It will
I
only
have had
let
that
me
happen.
play. Yeah. It will only
Well, I
let
can
me
tell when
play
there's
a certain
something out of
way.
balance. Yep. And
Yes.
you're like,
Yeah.
it slows down or it gets muted or whatever it is.
Yes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so if you listen, they do have a certain wisdom about them, and they can be just as much of a teacher as anybody else.
Well, I like how you explain that because, for me, I'm just like, well, that's what it's doing right now because there's a reason. And you explain it in a very technical way, which that's way beyond me. So I'm really glad to have you here to
Oh my
go over
gosh.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's great. Now,
Yeah.
you also use Reiki in your
Yes.
healing practice, and
Yeah.
I know, I mean, it's all energy, and Reiki
Mhm.
has a lot of color with it, and color is frequency, and those things combined can bring that forward. So, how do you bring those together, those
Yeah,
energies?
so I just in general wanted to get certified in Reiki, so I started, and then as I was doing the certification process, I was like, "Oh my gosh, I could totally use these two together." So I asked a few
Mm-hmm.
people that I like trusted and knew to be my guinea pigs, and I was like, "Okay, yes, this is great." And so how I kind of explain it is Reiki is this very gentle but consistent energy. It's like washing light or water through the body, and it knows where to go. Versus sound is this portal that's created that waxes and wanes in power when you need it to. And so Reiki is more just channeling through me. It knows what to do. And sound, I have more of an active relationship. Reiki, I would
Mm-hmm.
say I have more like passive. Not that I'm not doing anything, but I'm really just focusing on being the channel. Whereas sound, I'm
Right.
actively doing things to control what energy pocket we're working on, if I need to play louder to move some things through. And so when I use them together is when someone really needs a replenishment of energy. And
Okay.
so what I'll do is when we begin, I still start with the tuning forks to kind of get their body adjusted and prepared for the sound. And then I begin the Reiki. And I do about half of the placements, and then I pause, and then I incorporate some of the more gentle sounds I have, like chimes or some of the higher bowls, the higher frequency bowls,
Mm-hmm.
and let the sound carry it for a little bit. And then, depending on how the client is reacting, I'll go back in and I'll sense where the energy is at, and then I'll finish the placements. And then we carry and finish the session with the crystal bowls. And so, what I feel like happens when these two modalities work together is the sound with the tuning forks at the very beginning gets the body adjusted and starts to move things. And then the Reiki goes in and just replenishes the body of its energy and brings in this light, brings in this source energy. And then the sound
Mm-hmm.
kind of helps seals it in and help the body and the spirit adjust to these frequencies,
Mm.
instead of
I
them
see it
just
as a
coming.
pyramid, kind of, like a
Yeah.
foundation, and
Yes.
then building
Yeah.
up to the inward transmission.
Yeah, yes, yeah. Yeah, they have a really beautiful relationship together, and I really love using them together. It is very powerful though. I don't do it all the time, and I only use it when the client's needs are in alignment with it, because it is like exhausting for people. Like when they come out of it, I can tell that they're very
They're
tired.
like, good night.
Yeah, they're like, I'm ready to go to bed. And so I typically only put those together when a client really needs a replenishment of energy, or they've hit their point, they've hit their breaking point, and they just really need that love and compassion and source energy to come in and really soak in.
Oh yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that you're there to help. And I wish there was one of you in every city.
Oh
That
my
would be
goodness.
great. So now, when you're guiding, you're helping clients replenish their energy and rebalance themselves. Now, how does that then align for them when they leave? They've healed themselves, and how does that go forward? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's really different for each person, if I'm being completely
Okay.
honest. And I'm
Yeah,
very honest with people up front.
please do.
Like it's really hard to tell, especially if someone's new to sound and they maybe don't meditate all the time, they're not in a specific discipline. It's
Hmm.
really hard to tell how it's going to affect them. It's
Okay.
also how willing the client is. like what they're willing for it to come in and do for them, what they're willing to address, what they're willing to look at, what they're willing to feel. And so
Mm-hmm.
people have all different kinds of reactions during the session. I would say afterwards, the most common experience is to feel really, really tired the night of, but then for the
Mm-hmm.
next 2-3 days to feel a sense of peace and calm, and kind of like all of the voices kind of quiet down because they've opened up to their self energy. And so there's some trust there, and they're like, okay, I want to keep feeling this. um,
Yes.
so I would say that's generally the most common experience afterwards. But I do always tell people sound is like anything else. Um, the more disciplined you are with it or consistent you are with it, you're probably going to have deeper and deeper experiences as you continue your relationship with it. So there are some people that I've seen just like really quickly, they've got one appointment and they kind of just need like a reset and they feel good.
Mm-hmm.
But then there are other people that I see consistently, either once a week, every other week, once a month, whatever they might need. And I have this one client who really wanted to work on inner child work. She wanted to
Mm-hmm.
connect with her inner child, get to know her inner child. And I would say probably I feel like it was like the 6th session in, she had this really profound session where during the sound healing, her inner child like presented itself to her and took her to the memories that she was stuck in. And
Wow.
so she was seeing some really intense images for her
Mm-hmm.
trauma that she went through, but she had been consistent and she had done the work and was willing to do the work. And so when she got to that place, she was able to hold energy for her inner child. And she, told me afterwards when she saw what she was going through, she just said, I love you. I care about you. I'm here. And she just kept repeating that to her until finally she was like, you don't have to be here anymore. You can come with me. I'm not going to let anything happen to you. And so she said her, inner child came up to her and kind of hugged her, and they walked away from
That's
what
so
happened.
beautiful.
And so it was really, yeah, it was. And she came out and she was crying, and it was in the best way. She was just like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. Relief.
Relief. Yeah. And like such a sense of deep compassion and self love. Like the amount of compassion and love that she had held for herself in that moment was one of the strongest that she had up until that point. And so now that she's done that, she knows what it feels like, and she knows it's, capable, or she's capable of holding that amount of love and compassion for herself. And so it really changed the relationship between her and her inner child and the things she was going through. And, that's really a testament to her too, because she was doing the work and meditating and journaling
Yes.
and coming back. And I mean, she really dedicated herself to her healing through this journey, and it showed. And just like any other modality, the more you're willing to give to it, the more it can give back to you. And sound is very much so one of those modalities. So yeah.
And taking that, now she's got some tools to use
Yes. Yeah.
going forward in time, where we have sometimes the roller coasters of life where things will happen and we'll have to work on those things again. But it's a lot
Yes.
easier when you
Yes.
have
Yeah.
have figured that there's a way to do this, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So that's a
Absolutely.
great thing that you can do that for people.
Yeah.
Now, do you have any other stories that you want to share with us? Anything you feel like we need to know?
I think just that sound is really diverse in what it can do. Um, it like I've had sessions where people have come in and they've met their spirit guides or they've met their loved ones. um,
Mm-hmm.
People go on all kinds of journeys to planets, or I've had a few people go to the Akashic library. A lot of people go there. um,
Interesting.
yeah, in sound, which is fascinating. Yeah, just
That's
that.
cool.
Yeah, that sound really can, it's a very, very powerful modality, and it can really hold space in the way that you need it. And it's very malleable.
It is. I remember my I was in a sound meditation group, or went to a meditation where they were drumming. It was a drum meditation.
Mm-hmm.
And I hadn't really connected to my spirit guides that much at that time. And it was something I was learning to try to navigate. And I was sitting down with this group of people. And I remember as the drum began and the heartbeat, that coherence started,
Yeah.
and it was like boom, boom, boom. And then I'm looking in my mind's eye, and this Native American man starts dancing. And I was like, who are you? And then all of a sudden I was like, what? I know you. And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
remembered him from my childhood. So, much like your childhood where you were in
Yeah.
that very beginning, having that free run around open
Yeah.
experience,
Yeah.
I recognized this guy that I had forgotten about and put in the closet, so to speak,
Yeah.
for a long time,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I was so excited to see him. So it's
Yes.
a cool journey.
Yes. Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
So
Yeah.
what's one of your favorite experiences that you've personally had through like a journey, sound journey?
Hmm. I think, oh man, I've had a few. I'm trying to think of which one I want to share. Honestly, I think it was at the Willow Creek retreat with Judea and Patty in California
Okay.
last year. um, Jude was kind of opening the ceremony and started doing the sound, and I was sitting there and I just immediately felt like boom, and my whole body just dropped into the earth, and I was like, oh my gosh.
Whoa.
And I've had a lot of visual experiences, but this was an emotionally overwhelming experience. This was a little bit different because I'm very very visual in my gifts, and so
Mm-hmm.
that was normal to me, but this was the most emotionally, energetically, like, oh my gosh, I could like feel, and my nose started bleeding, and I was like,
What?
oh my gosh.
That
Jude's
is
like,
pretty wild.
I know, I was like, Jude's like sending me to another dimension right now. And like my nose started bleeding. I had like brought my hand up. I was like, oh my gosh. And it just like wouldn't stop. And finally I just
Wow.
like laid down and just surrendered to what was happening. Cause I was like, well, I don't know
We're
what
doing
to tell
this.
you guys. Yeah, this is what we're doing, I guess. So, and yeah, I just felt so many things that night. I had like the biggest purge I've had. I felt like I cried and I cried and I cried, and I don't even know what I was crying about. I was just crying. And
Hmm.
yeah, my nose was bleeding and I felt like I was in the middle of the earth, and I was like, I don't know what's happening right now.
That's a pretty amazing experience. And
Yeah.
just to touch on, who are Jude and Patty? Because some people might not know.
Oh, yes. Okay. So Jude and Patty are two psychic, intuitive mediums. I both believe they have that title. That are just two amazing women. They also have a podcast. It's called Spirit Speakers. They have a spiritual community, Omni Chakra, that you can join with like minded individuals. And um,
That's how
yeah,
we
they're
met.
just,
Yay.
yeah, yes, yeah. Yeah, they're just two amazing women. They both have their own things that they specialize in that they're doing right now. They both offer coursework and mentorship type things, and Jude hosts retreats, and yeah, they're amazing. I've had the
So
privilege
cool.
to work with both of them, and yeah,
I would
it's
love to
amazing.
do that. Yeah, someday.
Oh my
That
gosh,
would
yeah,
be
could
great.
not could not recommend enough. That was another thing that really helped me connect with realizing my gifts, because I feel like after I started going through the healing process, I kind of had to go through this process of, okay, I'm not crazy. I am experiencing these things. Things are real.
Yes.
And I did the mentorship program with Patty, and she really helped just validate and be like, okay, yes, you are real. Like, I did my first reading with her and I was so scared. And she was like, what are you afraid of? What are you talking about? And I was like, I don't know. I just feel like I'm crazy. And so I feel like she really helped validate and helped me really connect with my gifts and really helped me become confident enough to do what I'm doing now.
Well, that's wonderful. And I think everybody needs a Patty.
Everybody needs a Patty. Yes, everybody needs a Patty.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you so much for sharing with us today. And I
Yeah.
do want to ask our listeners out there, how can they connect with you or through your website or through social media?
Yeah. So my social media is earthern_healing. It's earth_healing. And I post pretty consistently on there. I have my offerings on there. I also have my website, earthenhealing.net. I have a blog that I post on there that goes over all kinds of the history on sound healing, the science of sound healing, and I'm going to be writing those pretty consistently for those that are interested in more of like the scientific side or the history side, or I go into extreme depth on those articles if people are interested in learning more. And then my offerings are also all on my website. People are welcome to email me, DM me, really reach out any kind of
Do
way.
you do where you go on location to retreats and bring your sound healing to people, or do you do it from a location
I do it
now?
from a location. My location's currently moving. I'm looking for a new location. I'm kind of in a transitional phase right now.
Mm-hmm.
I am based in Kansas City, Missouri. I am wanting to venture out and start taking part in retreats and start traveling a little bit more. So once that
Yeah.
starts happening, I'll be putting all of that on my website. And yeah.
Cool. All right.
Yeah.
Well, let's just put that out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Manifesting it, bringing it in.
That's right. All right. Well, thank you so much, Trinity. Really appreciate you coming and talking to us today and telling us about, your journey and how you've overcome some tough things, but also come out on the other side to be able to help people. So,
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for having me. I love talking about this, so I've loved being here.
thanks and take care, everybody.
Bye.